Thank you, Sid, and thank all of you for having me here today. It's certainly a pleasure to spend some time with you. I got a little nervous when we picked this book up. I'm glad you didn't ask me to read it. You know, I started, as Sid said, I started my career with East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office back in 1976. I worked in the prison a year, and I was a sergeant in uniform patrol. When I resigned to run for chief of police in Baker, at that time, me and my wife both were 29 years old, had 4 children, didn't know what I was getting into, but we stepped out there in faith, and the rest was history. But my time at Baker Police Department, the 27 years I spent there as chief of police, really helped me prepare for what I'm doing today. And of course, it was my ultimate goal to one day serve the citizens of this parish as sheriff. And I thank God for every day for giving me the ability to serve, and I thank you, the people, for giving me the opportunity to serve. I'll tell you this, there's only 3 things I really wanted to do in life. At one time, I thought I wanted to be a priest, and I visited the seminary on 3 different occasions. But when it got to the part of celibacy, I said, I'm not called. I realized I wasn't called. But the only other thing was to be a coach in law enforcement. And I took the law enforcement path. But I'm very blessed because being sheriff is just like being a coach. I don't care what ideas or goals I have. If I don't have good assistants and good players, we're not going to win. And I'm very blessed to have some wonderful, wonderful men and women who serve in the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office. Individuals who really know what being in law enforcement is all about. There's only one reason to wear this badge. There's only one reason to get this profession, and Sid knows this well. It's to serve. That's all we do. We provide a service. We don't manufacture some good or sell some commodity or whatever. All we do is provide a service, and that service is to all the people all the time. And those of us who excel in this business, I tell everybody every day, you might find somebody who knows the law better than me, you might find somebody that's better administrator than me, but you're not going to find anybody who knows people any better than I do. And that's what's got me where I am today. It's treating people the way you'd want them to treat you. That was instilled in me at a young age, and that's what I'm trying to instill in all men and women that serve in the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office. And that's what it is, because that's all it is. And those of us who have true servant hearts and true servant mentalities really excel in this business. So, and I won't go any further than that, but I'm really blessed. I've got some wonderful men and women. And what I tell you, in my 41 years in law enforcement, this past summer has been the worst period of those 41 years that I've served. To have what happened to us in just a short 3-month period of time, it really was devastating. It was the worst times, but on the other hand, it was the best times, because I saw the worst in mankind, but I saw the best in mankind as well. It brought out the best in people. I'm going to recap a little bit about the summer, and I won't go into depth. But you know, it all started back on July the 5th when Baton Rouge City Police had an altercation with Alton Sterling and resulted in Mr. Sterling's death. As a result of that, we had started here in East Baton Rouge Parish. Casey, why don't you just take the clicker, because I don't know. I hadn't seen that yet, so you know, you can just follow me. But as you see, July the 5th, we had the shooting incident at Baton Rouge City Police with Alton Sterling. It followed a weekend of protest. During that 3-day weekend, there was about 182 arrests that were made. And you can see on the first day of the arrest, the number of people that we arrested. We made 30 arrests, 26 were from Baton Rouge, 3 from Denham Springs, and 1 from Prairieville, and we recovered 1 gun. On Saturday, we made 101 arrests, and when I say we, most of the arrests were made by Baton Rouge City Police, but myself, our agency, and the state police, and other law enforcement agencies from around the state were involved in dealing with the protest. And on Saturday, there were 17 arrests from out of state. Out of the 101, and 19 out of town. We recovered 9 guns, 3 rifles, 3 shotguns, and 3 pistols. Sunday was the worst day of protests that we had. We made 50 arrests. 12 were from out of state, 32 were from out of town, and only 6 from Baton Rouge. And I want to say this about what took place. This is the first incident of its kind that has happened in the United States. Y'all know what's going on across the country with questionable police shootings that have resulted in riots, have resulted in people burning cars, breaking into buildings, shutting down commerce, interstate. I'm very proud of what happened here in Baton Rouge because none of that occurred here. None of that occurred here. It's the first time ever that one of these incidents has taken place anywhere in the United States that those things didn't happen. There was 182, 183 arrests that were made. Only 1 protester was injured. Only 1 officer was injured. And I think it speaks well for this community because I want to commend, it wasn't just the law enforcement approach to these incidents. I think we have, for the most part, handled it right. We learn from our mistakes and we know what we're going to do different next time. But for the most part, it was the people of this community that came together. And I want to commend the community leaders, elected officials, the faith-based community, the vast majority of which tried to maintain peace and order. Not all did, but the vast majority did. And I want to commend them for that. And just the people of Baton Rouge themselves, because we didn't have what you have and what you've seen throughout this country in Baton Rouge during those 3 days. And I think it was because of all of those reasons that it didn't happen. But be that as it may, as y'all know, the next weekend, July the 17th, that was a week after that guy went to Dallas and killed those police officers there. We had an individual who traveled here a long distance, who went, we know he went to Dallas and spent at least 1 day in Dallas, and then he came here to Baton Rouge and spent about 3 or 4 days here, and was here for the sole purpose of hunting down law enforcement officers. That was his whole purpose, to be here. And as you know, it resulted in 3 Baton Rouge City police officers getting shot. 2 of them were killed. 3 East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's deputies that were shot. 1 were killed. 1 is still fighting for his life as we speak. And 1 is recovering from his wounds. He was shot in the arm. He's undergone several different surgeries. He still has several surgeries to go back. The deputy, that deputy, his prognosis is good. The doctors think that he may regain most of the use, if not all of the use of his arm. So we're still praying for that. As far as Nick Touye, he was transferred a couple of weeks ago to Houston and is going through some other surgeries. It's a miracle that Tim is still alive. I was there at the morning when the surgeons came in and talked to his parents and told them that he wouldn't make it through the night. Then it was 5 days. Then they told him 2 weeks. It's been over 100 and something days now that young man is still alive. So we're still praying for him. It would take a miracle for him to survive that wound, but we're still praying for that miracle. And as a result, you know, you saw the community come together once again. There were no more protests. There were those that were calling for protests, calling for 1,000 people to show up here or there. But at the most, there was 15 or 20 people that showed up. And I want to say that, you know, it was everybody in this community. When you went through those 3 funerals and you went through those 3 funeral processions, we had people line the streets from the time they left the church to the time they got to the cemetery, and all 3 funerals, black and white, from all different denominations, from all different races, showing support for those officers and their families. I thought it was a great thing to see that kind of support. We still, as you know, the Department of Justice is investigating the Sterling shooting, and I can't sit here and tell you what that decision is going to be. I can't. I really, honestly don't know much more than what you know, what you've seen on TV, what you read in the paper. I don't. But I do know that a decision is going to come out. And whether you or I agree with that decision or not, we have to accept that decision, and we have to move on. There's no question that Baton Rouge has some issues, and they have some issues that need to be dealt with. And I think that this is an excellent time for people to come together and sit down together as one people to discuss these problems and to come up with real solutions to these problems and not further divide. And I hope and I pray for a healing with that process. I can't give you a timetable. You know, I asked the Justice Department if they could possibly, I don't know. You know, I didn't know when they were going to come out with their decision, but I was hoping that it wouldn't be during the football season. It would have been terrible to have that decision come out during the LSU Southern home game or whatever. And now I really hope that they'll wait till after these holidays are over with to come out with that decision. My best guess to you that it will come out sometimes next month. I think that's probably going to happen. Whether it's before the presidential inauguration or after, I don't know. But my gut feeling just tells me that they'll probably come out with that decision then. Whatever it is, we'll be prepared to deal with that decision and have to deal with whatever comes up. But I think, you know, not everybody that traveled to Louisiana to protest, and I don't want to say this, you probably heard me say it on television. I never question, and I still don't question any citizen's right to protest, to demonstrate, to voice their opinions. That's what we're all about as Americans. That's why these people died on December the 7th for that right. And we don't question that right. And we will support that right. We will protect that right. But we said from day one, we will not tolerate any lawlessness. We will not tolerate any violence. We will not tolerate any destruction. And I can tell you that law enforcement is still in that same mode. Not everybody that came to Baton Rouge came here just to disrupt. But I can tell you the majority did. The majority that we arrested did. They came here with an agenda to do just that. They're angry because we didn't allow them to accomplish their agenda. And I'm sure that they're going to be planning on coming back once the decision is made, especially if it's not a decision that they want to hear. But I ask that you all pray and ask that we address our problems as we should address our problems within ourselves, and then we move forward and become a better people from it. But I'll move on from that. Of course, right after that, August the 12th, 2016, we had the Great Flood. I can tell you that event is something that I worked 8 days in Katrina, down in New Orleans after Katrina. I worked 8 days. I was part of the Emergency Response Task Force for the Chiefs of the Police Association at that point, but I worked with the Sheriff's Association in conjunction with that. This was our Katrina. I can tell you when I finally got up in the air, after the rain stopped and surveyed not only our parish but the surrounding parishes, what I saw from there was the same thing that I saw in New Orleans with Katrina. Only difference is Katrina, the water stayed there for weeks, where here it got out a lot quicker. But it was crazy the way it happened. You know, I worked at flood of '83, and that was the standard up until now. And the water's always going to run from north to south. It's going to try to make that flow. But it was just crazy the way this water acted. I mean, we had water that was going east to west, just looking for a place to get out. And there's been a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of finger pointing about we wasn't ready, this wasn't ready, but the diversion canal wasn't finished. I certainly think, and I've been asked this question, and I'll say it again, I think the diversion canal could have helped, but it wouldn't have prevented this. I don't think that you can build enough diversion canals to prevent what happened to us. When you look at the amount of rain that we had, 30 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, it's just not a place for it to go. What's different from '83 to 2016? A lot. If you look at how we built up this parish since then, you look at Livingston, how they built up their parish since then. Every time you build up the ground, you pour in concrete and everything else, and there's just not a lot of places for water to go. I mean, that's just it. And of course, y'all all saw how this thing just circulated just like a hurricane. I mean, it just wasn't a named hurricane. It did have the winds, but the rain was there and the circulation was there, and it just stood over us for those days. I went to bed that Thursday night, and it was pouring down rain. I was woke up about 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. My office called me and said, "Sheriff, we got water everywhere." I got up, tried to get out the end of my street, couldn't, had to go another way. We were fortunate, we were up on a hill, we didn't have water, but a lot of my neighbors did. And I don't think there's a person sitting in this room, if you live in East Baton Rouge Parish, Livingston Parish, wherever, that you weren't affected. You had a family member, you had a friend, you had a neighbor, you had a co-worker, somebody, everybody was affected. Casey, do we have the numbers on the number of houses? Which slide is it? Okay. As you can see, that's a map that showed the affected areas. Close to 58% of our parish had water over it. In Livingston Parish, which I'm sure some of y'all are from there or you live there, have friends there, 80% of their parish was underwater. You can see the number of square miles and what it affected. But when you look at the people that were displaced by that flood, the number of homes damaged, the number of additional structures that were damaged, the number of houses, it was devastating. All I can tell you, and there's a lot of discussions, and if you were affected and you got FEMA's help promptly, that's great. But my opinion, from Katrina to now, this time FEMA came with a lot more people and a lot quicker. And if you got help, thank God you did. But it's still, to me, a cluster. You know, there's people out there that are still wondering what. And, you know, it's just like my son-in-law got water in his house, and he lives in a little cul-de-sac in their area, and they're like cookie-cutter homes. Each home's the same. Each home got a foot of water. His neighbor, a FEMA inspector, went in there and wrote him a check. Another FEMA inspector goes to my son-in-law's house, the same damage, and said it was livable. He could stay, didn't get a penny. So, I mean, how they do things and how they, I still can't figure all that out. But anyway, that's where we are. But I can't tell you how proud I am of the men and women who, and not only that, but just citizens as well, that came out, went out of their way, had water in their homes, but once they got their families safe, they were out there helping people. And I mean, it took that kind of an effort. Out of our deputies, and that's not the total count, we have 930 employees in the sheriff's office. We had a little over, I think it was 204 that were affected by the flood, that had some degree of damage in their home. We worked more than 10,000 hours of overtime, and required to the additional normal hours of work. We lost 61 of our units in the flood. We were fortunate. We didn't lose any of our structures, any of our buildings. None of those were affected by the flood, but we did lose quite a bit of stuff. FEMA is reimbursing us on most of that with our overtime hours. The thing about it is with units, the way FEMA reimburses you is they come in and they say, okay, list each vehicle that was flooded, and they're going to take the year of the vehicle and so forth, and they depreciate it. So, you know, it doesn't really replace a vehicle when we got to go out and buy a new vehicle at the current cost. All it does is help offset some of that cost. We were hopeful to try to get, I've been to Washington 3 different times now, trying to secure funding. I will tell you that we were hopeful to try to get some money from the Department of Justice, because if we could have went through the Department of Justice, they would have replaced unit for unit. We wouldn't have gone through this depreciation deal. That didn't pan out. There was a lot of partisan politics being played at that point, and why we did this is beyond me. But back during Sandy, our delegation opposed funding to New York for Sandy, and that just amazes me. I don't understand how we could do that. You know, being what we go through here in Louisiana with storms and floods and hurricanes. But anyway, there was a lot of in-house fighting. Has been done away with. But now I think we're going to be able to. Last night they passed a bill to give another $1 billion in relief to the state of Louisiana through the help me out, Skip. What do they call it? It's grant money through community development efforts. So hopefully we're going to be able to apply for that. In the past, those programs, when it happened in New Orleans, most of those, I'd say 90% of those, that was forgiven. I don't know if that's still going to be the same posture the government will be in on now, with things being forgiven or not. But we're going to work and look at ways to try to do it. What's really going to affect us is the financial impact to our department, and it's not only going to be to us, but it's going to be to all of the 30 taxing districts that we collect ad valorem property taxes for. As you can see on the scale, that's where we've been from 2014 and what's projected for 2017. This was a reassessment year, and property in East Baton Rouge Parish was only reassessed with a 3% increase, which was a little low, but that was before the flood. Now we had a flood, so the properties that are being affected are going to have to be reassessed. And I've been talking to the assessor, and Brian's told me he didn't know exactly at first what he was going to do. Neither did Livingston and all. And I think they all got together. There was a high end that we were looking at and a low end. The high end would have cost the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office about $16 million a year. Would have been cut out of our budget. I'm going to tell you more about our budget in just a second. The low end would be more like $8 million. And Brian is leading to the low end. All the property, of course, all your tax notices have not gone out yet. When do we anticipate that being?
Well, they'll be on the internet December 15th. We'll mail out the notices by January 1st.
Okay, we'll mail them out by January 4th. Let me introduce two, and I think one of these ladies, people, you don't need any introduction. Mary Erlingson, who's one of y'all's members, is a legal advisor for the Sheriff's Office. She handles our legal stuff. But also Skip Rohr, who's I think the member, another one of me, Davis's brother. He is stand up. Skip's my chief civil deputy. So if you have a problem with your taxes, call him. And there again, I tell everybody, look, I do not set your taxes, I just collect them. Go talk to Brian. But when you look at our budget, we work on an annual budget of about $75 million. So to have that impacted by $18 million would be totally devastating. To have it impacted by $8 million is going to be tough, but we're going to manage. We're going to do what we have to. But when you look at our overall budget, about 68% of our budget is salary or salary-related benefits, which if most of you that have businesses, I'm sure it mirrors pretty much what you have. The majority of everybody's budget is salary and salary-related. So when you look at that, for us to really, we don't want to have to do that. Hopefully we won't have to do that. I'm looking at a budget surplus right now. We call it a fund balance. You know, I'm getting down, and I'm willing to expend some more of that, but I can't go down to zero budget balance. You saw what happened with Katrina and how it just shut down the governmental entities in Plaquemines Parish and Orleans Parish and Jefferson Parish because they had absolutely no cash flow. Each year, most sheriffs in Louisiana, as y'all know, we're mandated by the state constitution, gives our authority, and not only are we the chief law enforcement officer for the parish, but we're the tax collector and also the keeper of the jail. But there's very few sheriff's offices in the state of Louisiana that get derive any funding from sales tax. We're one of them that doesn't. We don't get a penny from sales tax. The majority of our funding comes from ad valorem taxes, from property taxes, and the money we get from that. So to have that cut and really there's no other way for us to make it up. And it's not just us it affects. Here in East Baton Rouge Parish, we collect ad valorem taxes for 30 different entities. And those include schools, they include hospitals, they include EMS, they include fire departments, they include BREC, they include libraries, a multitude of things. All of the law enforcement taxing districts, which you may live in a subdivision area that's passed a tax, the money that you're going to receive this year is going to be less than what was anticipated because of this. So it's going to have a financial impact on all of those entities, and we're just hoping that it'll have the least effect as possible. But that gives you pretty much an idea of where we are from the financial impact with this, with the flood. We have not lost anybody. None of our people have. Some of them have taken early retirements because they had low retirements already and they had their house flooded, so they went on and took early retirements. But we hadn't had anybody just decided, I'm leaving here, I'm not staying. Unfortunately, my good friend and colleague Jason Ord from Livingston Parish, he's lost about 6 deputies who have decided to move on and go to other areas, move and go to other areas of the state or even out of state because of the flood.